Alright guys, today I'm doing a very different list. I've never done something like this, but I found a pretty fun idea of taking Metacritic, who basically just accumulates all different scores from all different websites and gives you an average score for a video game. And if you've never used that website before, you could just go to metacritic.com, type in the game, and see the average score. Now, something I'm going to do a little different here is that I'm taking the score for each game that is most reviewed. So if it was on the PS Vita and had 25 reviews, but the PC version had 10 reviews, I'm going to go with the PSP Vita, or PS Vita, I think it was called, not PSP Vita. That don't make no sense. But the point is that I'm going to give the one that has the most reviews, but certain games I want to talk about a little bit more of why, and I'll also talk about the critic score, which is the ones you're going to see and talk about, but I also want to talk about the user score on some of these games. And with the newest game, Daybreak, coming out very, very soon, by the time this video comes out, probably the next day, we have a lot of games to go through. So let's start with the very first one in the mainline series that started with Trails in the Sky. Now, Trails in the Sky is a 2D RPG kind of tactical game with turn-based combat, as they go around and they're part of this guild that basically helps people, does missions for them, but also hunts monsters and pretty much just keeps things safe in a way. They're kind of like bounty hunters in a way, which is really cool idea to introduce us into this world of Trails by introducing us to kind of mercenaries in a way, but good ones mostly. Now, Trails in the Sky is on the PSP, but also on the PC, and as you can see, the PSP version has a lot more people playing the game, so it has a 79 average on Metacritic, which is pretty good. I mean, that's a pretty solid score for a Japanese RPG that is 2D and on a handheld. And the user score is 82%, which I think is pretty good, or 8.2. I'm just going to do 82%, it's easier. So that's a little higher than the critics, but personally, I have a lot to say about this game, and I'm going to do my own ranking one day of all these games, but I gotta say that that is a tad bit low in my personal opinion of how I felt playing this game, but I can also see where people are coming from. It's a slow burn in the beginning. It's introducing you to a world that takes its time to set up all these characters and all these places, and it is a turn-based game, so that's not for everyone. I think that genre, while a lot of people still love it, is not the RPG element that people love the most about these type of games. They like the characters, they like the story, and the RPG part of it, the turn-based part of it, isn't nearly as interesting to a lot of people, so maybe that's why the score is a bit lower. And next we're going to talk about Trails in the Sky Second Chapter. Now, Second Chapter also was on the PSP, but it was also on the PC, and surprisingly, the PC version has one more review than the PSP version, so it's the one I'm talking about. It has an 8 out of 10, or 80% on Metacritic, so it's reviewed slightly, just slightly, 1% higher than the original, and I think most people will agree with that. If you don't take my word for it, the user review is 87%, which is very high. I mean, that is very high for user reviews, as most users can be jaded on a series that runs this long. Obviously, Second Chapter did a lot for people that they enjoyed it more than the first one. Me, personally, I have a lot to say about this game too, but I will say some of the things I do agree. It does improve in terms of the combat. It makes it more fun, more accessible, where they add in an easy option for people who have trouble with the first game. And I also think it really polishes Estelle and Joshua as some of the best characters with such amazing growth that they do a great job. And I'll get into it more when I do my own ranking, but I can see why this one is reviewed higher than the first. Seeing it out there for most people, like when I go to Reddit or any of those forums, this is one of the top 3 almost always. Now, perhaps the most shocking review on this entire list is Trails in the Sky the Third, which is the third part of the Sky trilogy, and it's at an 83%. Now, that kind of surprises me. Not to say this is a bad game. I actually like a lot of what this game pushes. It's something different. It's way more streamlined into the gameplay segment of the game and a lot less talking, even though it does have its story there. But I have to say that the 83% is wild. Higher than the first and second is insane. Now, the user score is a bit lower at an 81%, so that makes a little bit more sense, given that I played this game and I agree with the user score that this one isn't quite as good as the first two. Saying that, I think the idea of this game, having Kevin, who is now the main character from kind of a side character in the second game, really got to showcase how dark this world can be. And some of the stories that you go through in this game, because in this game you get to kind of revisit memories or go into stories of people and get a lot more background to them. There's some in here that are funny, there's some that are sad, and there's some that downright I wanted to cry, and I got a little teary-eyed, so you know what I'm talking about. So yeah, this game is an interesting game. Saying that, I can't believe it's the highest one so far on this list at 83%. That kind of just blows me away. But yeah, this might be the special one that some people do think this is the best in the entire series. And if that's you, I want to hear that in the comments, because tell me why. Tell me why. Ain't nothing. I was going to never do that again. Alright guys, so we're going to move away from the Trails in the Sky series with 1, 2, and the 3rd, and go into Trails from Zero, which is considered the Crossbell era. And there's 2 games to this era, and I just recently came off of these, so I beat both of them within the last 2-3 months. And I gotta say that these are an interesting 2-pair because they feel vastly different from Sky in a lot of ways, while still having the heart of the series. So as you can see, the first one, Trails from Zero, has an 80%, which is pretty much in line with the rest of the game. So it's slightly above the first Sky, slightly below, or on the same as second chapter, and below third, which, again, is quite fucking insane. Now, the interesting thing about this one, this is why I wanted to bring this up, is that while I am focusing on the most reviewed console, or the most reviews on a console, because I feel like that's the best way to get the overall gist of what everybody's thinking, this game is actually better played on the PC or Switch. Now, this is the PS4 version that I have up here that's showing, so I want to talk about that because the PC and the Switch version have higher pixels. The characters are better rendered. I don't know the magical words for them, but it's a better looking game. It runs smoother, and it is the remastered version of these games, where the PS4 is kind of the old game and they didn't do much work. You can go online and figure out why that happened, but the point is, I played a little bit of the PS4 version. I bought the PC version pretty soon after, and I have to say, the PC version looks way better and worth it to play on the PC. Now, the PC version has 90%, which is very high. So let's go with the Switch, which has 19 reviews, which is right under the PS4, and has an 85. Now that's pretty high. Zero is the beginning of the Crossbell saga, so it kind of finishes up a little bit of Estelle and Joshua's story, but not much. It's more of its own characters with Lloyd and Ellie and this whole new crew, and they're basically cops or detectives, police, enforcers. They try to help people in a similar way that the Bracer Guild did, but they're, you know, paid by the city. So now you get this opportunity to see a different structure. So you got the guild who get paid to do these missions, and now you got the police force and how they have to kind of follow the laws, even if some of them are really fucked up. It's a really interesting political point of view I didn't expect, and they do put a lot of political intrigue in this game. Now I will say, when I get to my own review, I did have problems with the pacing in this game. I felt introducing a smaller cast of characters is smart, but at the same time, I just couldn't fully get invested in everybody's story here. And I especially felt that the side missions, this to me is when they start kind of dwindling down. I did not like them that much in this game. But like I said, I'll talk about it more with my own ranking. But what do you guys think? This is the second era, or the second saga of this very long-running series. So if we're going to go with the Switch version, it's an 85%, which would put it higher than the entire Sky series. Or we're going to go with the PS4, which fits it right in with second chapter. So what would you guys say you think? Because the user average, surprisingly, is lower. It's a 7.4. Now, I don't know if that's because it's the PS4 version I'm looking at, but it looks like the same no matter what I click on. So I think that's just overall. But 7.4 is the lowest average so far in the entire user review. And a little surprising, because this one is usually recommended by a lot of people as a good starting point. And I would agree with that. It's not a bad starting point. But yeah, that's going to be a 7.4 for the user review, and 8 out of 10 or 80% for the PS4 version. And then if you go on the Switch or PC, Switch being 85%, PC being 90%, obviously those are the better versions of this game. Now let's talk about Trails to Azure. Did I say that right? Probably way off. I fucking suck with pronunciations. If you're new to my channel, just get ready because I can't pronounce shit. But this is the second Crossbell game, and this one is generally considered the highlight of the Crossbell saga because what Zero did is give you all these characters, all these setups, and then this pays it off. And I have to say that I would agree with the score overall in terms of where it's at 81%. It's definitely one of the stronger Trails games out there. It has the cast from the old game or the last game and enhances them even more. It introduces some of the minor characters in the old game and gives them a lot more to chew on. And somehow, I actually cared about two characters I didn't think I would. And on top of that, I think that the overall pacing is good, better than the last one for the most part, except the final fucking chapter in this game is longer or as long as the first 3 chapters of this game. I couldn't believe how long this last chapter of this game was. But the user review is 81%. So this is actually the same exact score, which I usually don't see. Now that's the PS4 version. Let's look at the Switch and PC. While I'm seeing 86% for the Switch version, same thing with the PC, 86%. That makes more sense. This is usually considered on Reddit as the highlight of the entire series or one of the best. And obviously that 86% would put it really high up there with, I think, second chapter as one of the highest, or you know, the third somehow being 83%. So those would be the 3 highest if we're taking the Switch version, which only has 2 less reviews than the PS4. Alright, so now we're going to jump into the Trails of Cold Steel series. Now this is actually the opening to a lot, or the beginning of this game series for a lot of people, myself included, surprisingly. So Trails of Cold Steel, or as a lot of people just call it Cold Steel, is a 4-part epic, maybe 5 if you count the crossover game, that stars Reen as our main new character, and he goes to school with a bunch of students, and they become your party, basically your teammates, your somewhat lovers in a way. And this is very heavily influenced by games at that time like Persona, where you have these bonding moments that you can enhance the characters and kind of, you know, bond with them in terms of like dating and becoming closer. So there's something that I really like about this game, and to be honest, this is actually the game that started me on this entire series. After I played the first 2, I went back and played the others, but Cold Steel has a 77% as an average. Now that is the lowest average on here so far, I believe. And even when you look at the other ones, like on the PS4 version, PC, or any of those, they're at an 80%. So just a little bit higher, but 77% we're going to go with as the lowest in the series so far for critics. Now, user review is 84%, so this is one of the highest for the user review, and probably for good reason. This is a lot of people's first game into this entire series, just because it was the most accessible in terms of it was on the PS3, PS4, now PS5. You can play this on PC, Switch, so it has the most ways you can play this game. And I think the overall idea of being in a school and forming bonds, a lot of people love Persona and games like it, and for good reason. Fire Emblem has also evolved into something like that, where you feel closer to the characters thanks to those events. And while I think Cold Steel is one of the more flawed games for me, I do think that a 77% is about what I would put it at. Maybe a tad bit lower, but overall I think it's a great starting point for a lot of people who want to get into this world and see what it's all about. And now we're going to jump into Cold Steel 2. Now, I'm not going to say much about this game because I have plenty to say with my own review, but this review is at 80%, which is way, way, way too fucking high. But it also has an 83% for the user review, so people obviously like this game. It comes right off the trails of the first one. The first one had a huge cliffhanger, and this goes right into it. So I think a lot of people were hyped for this game when it came out, or when they played it right after, and enjoyed it. Me, I got a lot of motherfucking problems with this game, including especially focusing on the pacing and what happened with this game. But anyway, this is at 80%, 8.3 if you want to do the user, or 83% for the user review. This is kind of in line with second chapter and first chapter, and for the Sky series. I think the reason why I'm a little surprised it's so high is because I feel like this one is one of the more talked about ones that didn't fully capture people in terms of like the first one, or the one we're about to talk about, the third, or even the Zero series, or sorry, Crossbell series or Sky series. So I'm a little surprised this is that high. But, you know, that's what this is all about, being a little bit surprised here. So let's talk about Cold Steel 3. This has an 82%, so it's one of the highest ones, only trailing behind a few, like third and, well, if we count Zero and Azu. One day I'll get it right, from the other systems. But 82% is the highest of the Cold Steel series by far, and it has an 87% for user reviews. So this one is very highly rated. This one is the one that seems to have the most fans in terms of just looking at these. It has the most reviews too, 30 critic reviews, 219 user reviews. So obviously people like this game. They played this game. Me, myself, played it early this year, January, and I liked it a lot myself. I could see why these reviews are this high. Reen is a bit older. The whole Class 7's older. You get a new Class 7. You're training. You're now their teacher. It has a very cool dynamic here. Yes, it still has some weird shit like your brother-sister fucking weirdness going on and things like that. But overall, Cold Steel 3 felt fresh. Had new ideas. It had these brave orders for the gameplay. The RPG elements were the best it was at that moment, in my opinion, going from the original up to here. So yeah, I think Cold Steel 3 had a lot going for it, and besides some small pacing issues here or there, I really enjoyed this, especially the ending. Very, very well done. Now let's talk about Cold Steel 4. The reason why I don't have my own ranking yet is because I am playing this game, and I am in the third act. There's 3 acts, and it's got issues. Well, it's got issues. I'm gonna talk about them one day, but let's just talk about the reviews here. We got an 81% from Metacritic with 33 reviews. That's a lot of reviews for a Japanese RPG, and it has an 87% for user reviews. So once again, this is really right below 3. I don't know if it's maybe recency biasy or they just really, really enjoyed this game. There are probably a lot of people who love it. It might be one of the most sold ones. I think 3 is the most sold. But looking at other critic reviews, it's all in line with that. PS4 version, Switch version, both 81%. PS5 version, which is the newest version, is at 80%. So Cold Steel 4 is obviously highly rated. People enjoy it. I don't agree with this. This is my most disagreeable one. Oh no, I shouldn't say that. 2 is my most disagreeable one, but this is pretty high disagreeable, at least where I'm at right now. Maybe it'll change my mind in the last act, but overall, this is very high. So I think this is also at the height of when the series was getting popular in America, 2020 during COVID. So I can see that. But yeah, where do you guys think this would have landed? Because I didn't think 81%. I thought closer to like high 70s. So that surprised me. All right, so we're going to talk about Trails into Rivier. I think I said that right, so I feel pretty proud of that. If I'm wrong, then I feel like a moron. But either way, this one is actually tied for user reviews and for critic reviews at 81%. Now, this is the crossover game, so I feel like this game is the least approachable game in this entire franchise if you haven't played any, because really it just closes up the Crossbell era and also the Cold Steel era into one game to finish the storyline. I have not played this game. This is one of the only ones I haven't played. I'm excited to get into it because I feel or I hear from fans that this is one of the highlights of the game for fan service, but also just really enjoyable combat, and that makes me excited to give it a go. Will I like it? I hope so. What do you guys think of this game? It's not that old. It came out last year in terms of America. Of course, in Japan, it came out like 4 years ago. But last year in America, 81% user review, 81% critic review. That's pretty freaking good in my opinion. So, yeah, what do you guys think of this one? Do you think it deserves that 81%? That's higher than... now we're a few in there. So it's higher than Cold Steel 1. It's higher than Skies 1. It's higher than Sky 2. It's higher than 0 if you don't count the better versions. So it's kind of in the middle, I guess, because we got some high rated ones like Cold Steel 3 and stuff. And we're going to finish this list off with Daybreak. So it's Trails through Daybreak, which is the newest game. Comes out on the 5th of July. And this one is kind of, from the reviews, 83% critic. We obviously don't have user reviews yet because it's not out in America. But 83% puts it at the highest game on this list if you don't count the Switch and PC version of Zero and such. But if you count the highest or the most reviewed version of each game, this one is the highest rated, or up there with Trails the Third, which is fucking mind-blowing to me. But yeah, I am very excited to play this game. The combat is going to be action-oriented, it looks like, from the gameplay trailers. I've heard this has a much smaller cast than Cold Steel, thank the Lord. And it has a character that is more morally gray, which should be interesting compared to Lloyd and Reen being more of the hopeful, goody-good two shoes. Estelle was a little bit, but she was also more naive and young and grew into a better, smarter person. But Daybreak is a brand new character, Van, I think his name is, and I'm really excited to try this out. 83% makes me very excited. Then again, somehow Trails the Third had 83%. I don't know what the fuck. But that wraps it up for the series. Like I said, I do want to do my own ranking once I play all these games, including Daybreak. So you'll probably see my ranking in a few months, or I might wait till Daybreak 2 comes out and do it right before that drops. But what about you guys? Guys, if you played this, do you agree with these reviews that I've said? They should be on this side. I'm putting them down here, maybe up above my head if I can't fit anymore. But I really want to know what you guys think. Do you agree with all these ratings? Do you think some are way too high? Do you think some are way too low? Are any of these games a 10 out of 10 for you? Or are some of these games like a 2 out of 10? List those below. And for anybody who hasn't played any of these games, I really would recommend starting with the Sky series if you can, but that's only on the PC right now. Or you can jump into the Cold Steel series, that's usually good, or Crossbell, because Crossbell is now on PS4 and Switch and PC. So, go pick any of these games. I also hear Daybreak's a good jumping on point, but, you know, who knows now. I'm so far deep into this, I gotta play it and let you know in a few months. So, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, hit that like button. If you like these type of videos, hit the subscribe. I do a lot of video game, comic stuff, all that good stuff. Now, if you like this type of video, I've never done something like this where I go to Metacritic and I see what they say and just kind of talk about each game and then see where the user review is and then where you guys would put it. If you like this type of video, let me know. I'd like to do more of them if you like them. If you don't, that's fine. I don't have to do these type of videos all too often. And I hope you guys enjoyed.